everyone, it's Stacey, and this week I'm going to be doing a quilting book review, which is a little bit different for me. But as some of you already know, I just want to change things up a little bit. A tutorial every week is a lot of fun, but it's also very labor intensive. So I just want to change things up a little bit. And what I'm going to do this week is do a quilting book review. And the first book I'm going to talk about is Material Obsession, Modern Quilts with Traditional Roots, by Doughty and Fielke. So this book was published in 2009. You can't actually buy new copies anymore. You have to buy it secondhand, but I really do love it. Both the ladies live in Australia, although Kathy is American and grew up in Ohio. All the instructions are in inches and yards because I'm not sure if you're aware, but quilting is always done in inches and yards, so there's no worries there. So let me show you inside the book. So Material Obsession is actually the first book that I read after I did my first quilting course. So when I learnt to quilt, I started off on my own, realized that I needed help, and then I enrolled in my local community education course, and I did like a 6 to 8 week course in quilting. So I made one quilt, and then after that I borrowed this book from the library, and this book inspired me to make many more quilts. So let's have a look inside. I just love the photography in this book. Everything just looks so homely and welcoming. There's a foreword by Kath Fassett, and I know he's very good friends with Kathy. Inside, in the contents, there's actually 23 projects, which is quite a few projects for a quilting book. And as always, they always do tend to include quilting basics, and that's at the back of this book. So in the introduction, don't worry, I'm not going to read it to you. I'm just going to read to you what it says about colour because it really inspired me right from the beginning. So I'm just going to say I read this book in 2009 and then I only actually bought my own copy in March of this year. So it's not something I've been referring back to, but it's really obviously made a big impression on me because I think what they're saying here is what I still live by. So it says, colour is like a magic wand. It speaks to us and screams yes or no. There is a technical side to colour that can be taught, which involves contrasting colours, complementary colours, shades, tones, and everything in between. We believe the best way of using colour is by instinct. You know what looks good to you. Make your personal choices from inside and trust how you feel about a colour combination. Now, I really love that because it's not dictating to you, this is how you'll do it. It's saying, do what you like and trust your instincts. And that's 100% what I believe also. And then one more thing on starting with one fabric. It says here, starting with one fabric that makes you sing is one of our favorite ways to choose colors for a quilt. Find one fabric you love, perhaps a large floral with a combination of colors, and start there. We call this fabric the inspiration fabric. And I think that's what I was trying to explain to you when I talked about your star fabric. Just start with one that you love. And I must have got that from this book. I know a lot of people talk about it. But like I say, this was the first book that I read when I was quilting. And I think it's really left a lasting impression on me. And one last thing I wanted to read from the intro is the most important thing we want you to remember about quilting as you read this book is that quilting doesn't have to be about boundaries. Some people have rigid perception about quilting, believing that everything must be hand-pieced, hand-quilted or hand-appliqued or done a certain way or to a certain size or a certain use of colours or tones, or else it isn't a good quilt. We encourage you not to think that way and be guided by your preferences and tastes. The best and most important decision you can make about your quilt is that it's yours. You did a great job, you love it, and you're proud of it. Show the world and have a great time while you're doing it. And isn't that great advice? Like I always say, I show you what I like to do, but sometimes I give you other options, and it's just about working out what works best for you. I think that's why I love this book so much, because there's no constraints. Just go for it. So now let me just show you a very special quilt in this book for me. And that's the Avalon quilt by Kathy. It's rated easy. Now, I made this quilt in 2009. I think I made about 5 of them. I made one for my mother, and I think it was a king size. And then I made one for my sister and my 2 nieces and a family friend, all for Christmas of that year. And it's so easy and it's so special to me. I just wanted to show you this quilt because it really was part of my quilting journey when I learned to quilt. So she gives you all the instructions on how to make it. And then funnily enough, Sarah here has got the Gypsy Squares. Now that's almost identical to our first quilt, although our squares were slightly bigger, but isn't that beautiful? And again, it was just a really great starting point for anyone who did my course. If you haven't done my course, you could get this book and do this quilt here. So then I'm just going to, there's so many beautiful quilts. I just can't show you the whole book, but there's appliques, lots of details for appliques. And I find that the quilts are really unusual. It's just not the normal run-of-the-mill quilting book. The quilts are really unique and really definitely ideas they've come up with themselves. I just wanted to show you this one. I just thought that was stunning. I could see that being made for a little girl's room. I absolutely love this one. I think that's absolutely beautiful. That's getting on to the more advanced. There's the Doughty Dresden. I think that's, again, just beautiful. And I'm only showing you a few of my favorites. There's 23 projects in this book. 3-ring circus. Again, that's advanced. But isn't that lovely? There's like a real vintage feel to that. And I do sway towards the vintage styles. This is Ginger Snap. And I think, again, that's just gorgeous. This is Stripping Vine. Again, beautiful. It might be hard to see the detail because of the colors she's used. It's a very traditional quilt, but with a really modern spin on it. So those were my favorite quilts in the book. Like I said, there's actually 23 quilts in it. I find generally when I get a quilting book, there might be 1 or 2 quilts I like. It's quite unusual for me to like 8 quilts in a book. And I think that's another reason why I really love it. And another reason why this book is so special to me is because I was lucky enough to meet Kathy when we were both teaching at a handmade conference in Wellington, New Zealand. At the time I was living in Sydney, Kathy also lives in Sydney, and I was talking to some other ladies saying that I was looking for someone who could share a taxi with me to the airport. And they mentioned that Kathy owned a shop in Sydney and that I should ask her. So I had no idea who she was. I walked up to her very brazen, introduced myself and asked her if she'd like to share a taxi. It wasn't until we'd got talking for about another 5 minutes that another lady joined us and started talking about her book, which is when I just felt so embarrassed that I just walked up to her like that and had no idea who she was. But anyway, she was super lovely, and I ended up having dinner with her and her friend, and we had an awesome time. And then later on I went to her shop, which is just beautiful, which is in Sydney. But anyway, I hope you like the book. Something I did forget to mention is that the projects really go from easy, beginner to intermediate. So this book is for everybody. It's not for beginners and it's not for advanced quilters. It's for everybody. Thank you for watching my videos. If you're enjoying them, please like, subscribe and leave a comment.